Hi, I'm Isabel Suarez from Coming Green. How are you, John?
Very well. How are you?
I'm doing well. Just wanted to preface this conversation saying that you're one of my favorite directors.
Oh,
I've seen all of your films, and
thank you.
Sing Street is like my go-to comfort watch.
Oh, oh, that's nice. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It's a good one, that one. That was a lot of fun to make, that film.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the classics for me. I guess my first question is, when coming up with the concept for Power Ballad, what was one aspect of the songwriting process that you really wanted to capture in this film?
Um, I suppose I wanted to capture that nice, innocent place where people get together to create and they have no anticipation of it ever going outside the room or anybody ever hearing it. The true kind of spontaneous sort of places that we go sometimes with someone where we collaborate on something without a thought. And the kind of the cold light of day, being opened on that lovely bubble, and the reality of ego and business and finance and family and all of those things kind of raining down on it and kind of crushing it and the ramifications of all of that. That really interests me because I've done this as a hobby, and then suddenly it's a business, and it's very hard to reconcile those two things.
Yeah, absolutely. I could definitely see that watching this. And I just found the casting of Nick so interesting because as someone who has grown up like listening to the Jonas Brothers,
Yeah.
I'm very aware that he is like someone who is such a good songwriter. I wonder if you guys jammed together on set and what were some of the different approaches that you guys have to songwriting that you've discussed?
Every day we jammed on the set is the answer to the second part of the question. But for the first, the Nick's a professional songwriter. I'm a dabbler. So I wouldn't compare myself for a second with Nick.
You're
He's a
so good. What are you
well,
saying?
I would say I'm a hobbyist, and Gary Clark makes anything that I've done sound like an actual song. But I do enjoy writing and messing around with music and putting it in films and stuff. But it's not my main thing. Nick is, that's his bread and butter, and he's so good at it, and he's so smart the way he thinks of songs, and it's really a great privilege, and it's very interesting to be in a room with him watching him segue from soul to R&B back to jazz into like super modern, you know hip hop, and you know just so perfectly kind of like describe what's going on musically in the world at the moment. It's amazing, and it's really good fun to sort of watch that. So we very different approaches, but we had great fun on set doing like Bill Withers covers, and moving back and forth from like a Charlie Puth song to like a Steely Dan song, and it was a lot of fun making this film.
Yeah, I bet. And one of the things that really speaks to me about your films is just this familial element of it. There is this scene in Power Ballad that I thought was incredible, which is, when, Rick's daughter is texting his friend saying, "Tell my dad that I believe him." I wanted to hear more about why that moment is so important to Rick, just having that affirmation from his daughter.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what I quite like about that scene in a way is that she might be lying, but that she knows that he needs to hear it. She kind of has figured out my dad, like with his big ego and the fact that he thought he was going to be a rock star. Maybe he just needs somebody to like believe him right now. That isn't like Sandy, who's his crazy best friend, but somebody that actually goes, if you're telling me something. There's a movie called, I think it's The Winslow Boy, where like a kid is accused of stealing something in school, and his father asks him, "Did you steal it?" And the kid says, "I didn't." And the father just knows he didn't, and then can act from then on in his son's defense, because he would never lie to him. And I felt like that was what was going on there a little bit more than it was more that she wasn't actually saying, "I know you're right," but it was more like, "I know you need to hear somebody trust you and know that you're not going out of your mind, because I feel like you're going out of your mind at the moment." So that text was, they were very important, very specifically chosen words. that appear in that
Yeah,
text.
absolutely. And I love that that moment just like I don't know, it was very emotional, I guess, watching it. And there's something else that I'd love to discuss, another scene where, you know, like Rick is confronting Danny about the songwriting credit. And Danny kind of justifies what he did as like, hey, I was the person who made it a hit. I wonder if Rick was in a different situation, if tables had turned, he had the resources and the level of fame that Danny has. Would he be able to make that song a commercial success, do you think?
Not at all. That's the point. You know, that they should actually be ideal collaborators in that they both have something that the other person needs to fill. And unfortunately, the Danny character, you know, can't see that and wants complete control and ownership and has something is missing in him that he needs validation on that level. So, and Paul knows, I think that the Rick character is kind of more insightful. He knows that he wouldn't have been able to turn it into a hit. And he says that, he says, you crushed it on that song. You did it. You brought it to a place I could have never brought it. But like, why wasn't that enough for you? And that's just the, you know, you know, they should have ironed all this out before they ever sat down together. But that's not the way creativity works.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, like I said, Sing Street is my comfort watch. I wonder if you could talk a lot about your partnership with Jack Rayner and always making a place for him to be in your films. What is it about him that makes you want to collaborate with him over and over again?
Um, Jack is kind of a great kind of. I think he could kind of do anything really, you know, which is what I like about him. He's I could see him. I can see him in a comedy. I could see him in you know, he's just done a horror movie. He's got great range. He's got a great smile and a likable face. He brings a lot to the role without doing anything. You know, he comes at acting from a strange, interesting place, and he kind of humanizes the whole process a little bit. He needs to sit in his chair and not say a lot, and already you're kind of interested. You know, there's something very open about him and his face and his whole kind of look, which I think in cinema terms is very, very important. You know, it's a visual medium and it's a medium of faces in the end of the day. And do we trust that guy? Don't we trust that? You know, they're quite broad kind of stuff we're doing. Do you know what I mean? Paul is Paul because he looks like Paul. You know what I mean? And he gets those parts and he cultivates that because he has this face that you trust. So he was really good for this role. And I often thought actually, if you didn't even see him writing the song with Nick, I think you'd still believe him in this movie.
Mhm.
He can't play a straight up baddie. You know what I mean? Uh, it's a you know he just has that face. But yeah, Jack and I have done tons of stuff together, um, and hopefully will in the future.
Yeah, I hope so. I love your collaboration. And I guess I'd love to hear more about like shooting in a stadium because I feel like all of your films have that indie quality to it, but having that opportunity to go and shoot in such a big place with so many extras.
Well, you would think that, but I'm afraid some of that is the magic of Hollywood and
Mhm.
you know CGI. We were never
Really?
in those. We were in big locations, but we green screened and reproduced crowd sections and built that up a lot of the time because we didn't have the budget to go and put those big shows on. But we also didn't want it to look like it was really CGI worlds. So we did it cleverly where the camera is on stage over people's shoulders and you're getting glimpses of audience. And you know, you don't really need 60,000 people, producers are very glad to hear, to make it seem like there's a lot of people in a room. And it's kind of fun to figure out ingenious ways of, so we got like 60 people and put them here. And like in the scene where Paul comes into the stadium and is like listening to the song, that's like 50 people and it's on a zoom lens, so it seems like there's a lot of people because a lot of them are out of focus in the background.
Mhm.
So it was an interesting, and it was interesting going from like the wedding gigs where there's like 60 people to these huge kind of stadia where there's like 30,000 people.
That's so crazy. I love that fun fact. I guess before we wrap things up, my
Yeah.
last question to you is what is a song that you've made with Gary that you're particularly proud of from any of your films?
That's a really good question. I think the song "Up" from Sing Street is one that I really like, and it's like because I think it's simply uh, it's like a simple verse. It's an uplifting chorus. It's a great little bridge. It's just a very sweet song, um, and it's not that big in the movie, um, but that's definitely a song where myself and Gary uh, it exemplifies the way we work, which is that I give him an idea that I have for like a melody of a verse on guitar or piano with me singing the top line over it. He goes and puts lyrics on it. And then what he always does is, which is amazing, whatever chorus I've done, if I've done one, he's like, that chorus isn't good enough. So he takes out the chorus and he does a block now of space and he writes these amazing choruses.
Mhm.
So this, like, if you take that song, "Going Up," that's him, and he takes it to that place. Or in Power Ballad, it's like da 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 da. That hooky thing that you're all singing is 100% Gary,
Mhm.
and which is great because I get the credit, I get a co-credit, but he did all the heavy lifting, and I was just the guy, because I need to like the songs in these films. Sometimes they start with me on a piano doing something, and I'll send him, a file. But all the catchy bits in the movies are Gary, and all the forgettable bits are mine.
I was listening to Up today in prep for this, so
Oh,
that's a good
oh, great,
way to wrap up our interview. Thank you so
cool,
much,
nice
John.
to meet you. Take care.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.